Look at the incredible Mount Washington. We're here in the Mount Jefferson Wilderness on the three-fingered jack loop, 24-mile loop, most commonly done as a backpack. Today I'm doing a 14-mile day hike on the Santiam Pass Pacific Crest Trail head, basically to the highest point of the 24-mile loop, which I think also yields the best views of three-fingered jack. Doing is a 14-mile, 1,600-foot elevation gain day hike. Today is September 9th, 2022. Very windy today. We're actually going to be having later today, over the weekend, a red flag warning, which is a windy lightning warning. So won't be in effect during my hike, but will be in effect later today. So I think we're seeing the beginning of the wind of a pending storm coming through. So this is a 24-mile loop. You can access it from the south, as we did today. Pacific Crest Trail, Santiam Pass does not require a recreation.gov permit, self-issue from the trailhead. Or you can access it from the northeast, Jack Lake. That one does require a recreation.gov permit. Road's a bit bumpy to get there, but doable with most SUVs. Oh, it's a nice shot of three-fingered jack. It's going to be the star of our hike today. Hiking through the Mount Jefferson Wilderness, previous burnout area, so you got a lot of young pine trees reconstituting the area, as they're apt to do in a burnout. I'm traversing this gorgeous burnout zone. It's, as far as I'm concerned, brimming with life. Different colors and different species of tree and bush and shrub and grass. I find it quite delightful. A cornucopia of colors and life. A plethora to dazzle your senses. So I definitely appreciate a good burnout zone. I'll be honest, and as much as I love a good old classic old growth forest, in some ways I actually find these burnouts to be more beautiful just because of their unique footprint. It's interesting to see. Life always finds a way. So I'm a big believer in appreciating the forest. I think that if you're into wilderness adventuring like I am, and you gain a huge appreciation and love for the forest, then really every step of the 14-mile hike like we're on today is magic. So you're just appreciating everything. It's almost sensory overload. There's so much eye candy. So that's kind of how I approach it. And I think that is personally the best way to approach it. I'm not a big fan of what I call dingled carrot hiking, that basically all you are wanting is the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. You just want to get to the destination for that money shot at the end, but you don't really appreciate the in-between part. So you're just kind of trudging along so you can get to the one viewpoint spot. To me, that's a little blah and unfun. I wouldn't bother doing it if that was how I viewed it personally. So, if you find the beauty in every step, life is a journey, not a destination. I firmly believe that to my core. I'm currently walking through a burnout zone. It's interesting, that zone we were just in a minute ago, that kind of alpine mixed tree life, pines and spruces and hemlocks. And this section does not have that. This is just a grassy section. You can see trees coming on the distance. So this is definitely a burnout zone. These white trees. Actually a bit of a sea of them. I'm gonna pan around. I will say, unfortunately, the horizon is a little bit hazy due to the Cedar Creek fire down ravaging the Waldo area currently, causing a lot of closures in the Cascade Scenic Byway system around Bachelor. We're a couple highways north of that, past Sisters in the Santiam Pass region, so this area is still open. I wanted to do a hike today. It's kind of an interesting paradox I will share, that if you're really into alpine hiking, like I am, then you have like maybe a 2-month window. We'll say generously 10 weeks, but maybe 2 months, 8 to 10 weeks, like August 1 to October 15. That's your window. If you want to come and enjoy a lot of frankly, the highest quality hikes in Central Oregon, way up in the Alpine zone. So the paradox is that you're basically waiting all year for like this 2-month window where you can do all the magic hikes. And then that window is the back end of summer. Guess what else happens at the back end of summer? Fire season. So you wait 10 months-ish to, have your window. Oh, I get to go up to the mountains finally. And then the window comes, and annually the area is besieged by wildfires. So then that closes down some sections, definitely obscures the views from the mountain peaks, from the summits. It's an unfortunate paradox. If you're one window where you get to actually go do it, it's the same window that the fires obscure your views. The number one cause of the fires is something completely out of our control. It's we get these things called red flag warnings, which is heavy lightning strikes, and we'll have sometimes we'll have 80, 100 lightning strikes in the forest in one weekend. Some of those create fires. A lot of them, the lion's share, are able to be managed, but every time we have a wave, there's always a couple that go out of control, and despite best efforts. So our problem is generally not irresponsible campers like leaving their campfire unattended. We have a lot of burn bans, and I'd say generally speaking, with exceptions, a culture that is very much fire conscious. So it's not irresponsible campers generally starting this stuff, it's lightning strikes. So fortunately there's not really anything you can do about that other than pour resources into your fire prevention. The one thing we can do is controlled burns, which we have been aggressively doing the last couple of years. So that's really the one preventive thing you can do. So you don't have like the kindling ready to light up an area when a lightning strike does hit. And that was a gust of wind. Currently ascending a beautiful burnout zone. Ecologically diverse, unique ecological footprint. Have these big, tall, white, dead trees. Still beautiful. And you have a lot of life brimming, roaring back with all these little trees and bushes and grass. Life always finds a way. So the area is repopulating, reconstituting itself. It's an eclectic mix of nature. And candidly, I in some ways find these burnout areas just as, if not more beautiful than the classical growth forest. I love me a classical growth forest, but because of the nature of them, the canopy and the monotone color of being in the canopy of an old growth forest, they can get a bit redundant after a while. So Not that I don't love and appreciate them, but in some ways, I find a burnout area to be more interesting. You never know what's around every bend. So it's a silver lining of the fires. I've definitely learned through research that to kind of shift the way I view wildfires. Obviously, you never want the loss of human life, animal life, or private property. That's horrific and devastating, but assuming that can be mitigated or eliminated, the fire of the forest itself is actually part of their healthy cycle. The forests are designed, in a sense, to have a life cycle of fires, growth, fire, regrowth, fire for millions of years. So that's how forests work. It's part of their system. So we get a little too short-term myopic as humans, focusing on the short-term negative impact, which is understandable, but take a step back and understand the ecology of the planet a little bit more. We realize that fires are a natural part of that life cycle. So, and I find the silver lining to me, it does, I think, make the areas more beautiful and interesting in the short term in a lot of cases. So much of life is how we look at it. So I never want a wildfire, but there's different ways of looking at it once one does happen. And getting some views of our trusty friend, Three-Fingered Jack, as we hike Three-Fingered Jack Loop. Speaking of wildfires, I will say there's a little bit of a haze in the air from the Cedar Creek fire ravaging Waldo. I gotta say, that one to me is devastatingly heartbreaking, because I was checking the map yesterday to see what part had burned, and the north end of Waldo, absolutely dagger to my heart, has completely burned. That is, or I should say was, a crown jewel of Oregon. That was, to me, hiking the North Waldo shoreline was a top 10 hike in the state of Oregon, and that entire area is gone. So that devastates me, to be honest with you, a little bit. Not to be all depressing in my hiking videos, but that is heartbreaking. So we're ascending this burnout zone, and I'm hoping later today some of the smoke will burn off Three-Fingered Jack, and we'll get a pretty good view of it. The Cedar Creek fire is southeast of us a bit and quite a ways away, so hopefully the haze won't affect us too badly. We are here on Three-Fingered Jack Loop Pacific Crest Trail, Central Oregon. Started from the Pacific Crest Trail, Santiam Pass Trailhead. Doing a little 14-mile, 1,600-foot elevation gain day hike. Essentially starting on the south end of the loop, hiking the west side, basically to the highest point in the trail, kind of the central west side of the loop. So in my opinion, the single best money shot view of the entire 24-mile loop. They call it the money shot. Where you come around the corner and you're right up in the business of Three-Fingered Jack's face. I feel like you can reach out and give Three-Fingered Jack a high five, if so inclined. So that is our day hike for today. We are ascending currently through the burnout. We're actually almost through this white, dead, spooky, haunting forest section. We'll be getting up to the forest proper shortly, but I actually like these burnout areas. I'm not knocking them. I find them very beautiful. Unique ecological footprint, diversity of species, whether it's plants or trees or grasses, shrubs. very windy today. And we're getting more views of Three Finger Jack straight ahead. Hiking through an ecologically diverse burnout zone. Very cool. I've actually grown to appreciate burnout zones quite a bit. In some ways I find them more visually interesting than some classic old growth forests, because they're around every turn. You never know what you're going to see. You got pops of color and life roaring back. Got different species battling for supremacy of an area, so it's interesting to see the beauty of nature in her natural splendor. Starting at Santiam Pass Trailhead, the southern section, and hiking the west side of the loop to what I can call the money shot, the highest point of the loop, where you get the money shot of the mighty Three Finger Jack. So we've entered a different section. The first few miles of this hike were classic burnout with the dead white spooky tree forest section, which I do find beautiful, hauntingly beautiful. Now we've gotten up a bit higher in elevation to more of a proper alpine zone. Now we are in the mountains, technically. We're up in the alpine zone. You can see there's a thickness of trees up in this section, and we're just going to continue gaining elevation until we eventually get to our viewpoint. There's Three Finger Jack right there on the right of those trees.